Today we're going to talk about the power of access. But before we start talking about that, I want you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, please. Hit the subscribe button, please. The power of access. When we have access to things, a lot of times in today's society, we take that for granted. And then when we lose it, then we realize, oh, I wish I had used that. I wish I'd asked those questions that I had. I wish I'd asked them to teach me that. I wish that I've asked my grandma the questions that I had for her before she passed. I wish. And that's what society does. We don't realize and we don't respect the access that we have to things, people, and places. So access is very powerful. And when you understand the power of access and you understand how to honor and love everything and honor and love each person, then you could gain. You realize that there are diamonds all around you. There are keys to your success all around you. But you have to put those keys into action. You have to learn and apply what you're learning. And you cannot learn if you don't understand the level of access that you have around you. First of all, let's talk about the access to people. A lot of us have people that we could call. We could call any time of the night, and we could call any time of the day, or we could call and they'll answer the phone. But one thing that we take for granted a lot of times is that we take for granted these people. Because we'll call and we'll ask some of the most basic of questions. We'll call and we'll just simply waste their time. We'll call and we'll do all of these different things, but we don't realize that the power that we have of access, we have access to them, and that access will not always be there. That access will not always be around. That access will not always be accessible. You see, when we understand the people and the access that we have and we learn to honor and respect others, then we learn to respect their time. One thing with me, one of my most pet peeve is to respect others' time. Because when somebody spends even a minute with me or even a minute talking to me, that's an investment that they're making that they can never get back. They never could get back their time. And they chose to spend that minute with me. They could have been doing anything else. They could have been traveling. They could have been working. They could have been doing anything. But at that point in time, they're spending that time with me. So what I do, I extend that principle to all of my friends, all of my acquaintances, or everybody around me. So if I have questions for anyone, I like just writing down my questions or creating good, solid questions so that when I'm talking to these people, I do not waste their time. When I'm talking to these people, I'm learning something. When I'm talking to these people, I'm growing. And as I'm growing, I'm able to apply what I'm learning and grow myself. You see, a lot of times what we do, we don't realize the access that we have. We don't realize the things that we could learn from others. When you're with your family members, when you're with your elder family members, ask them about when they were young. Ask them about the historical things. Ask them about things that you know whenever they're gone, you wouldn't know. Try and ask structured questions that will give you and gain you information so you could pass on to the next generation. Questions that will be able to pass down family traditions that were done throughout the times. How to make a cake, how to make certain things, how to make certain delicacies, how to do certain remedies. All of those different things you will not know if you don't utilize the access that you have with these people. You know, when you call and when you're talking to your pastors or your teachers and all of those, your different people, make sure you have structured questions. Make sure you're asking questions. Make sure you're not asking rudimentary, basic questions. Make sure you're asking questions that you could gain and garner information that will cause you to grow. But you will have to remember, the information is just information. The answers to those questions are just answers to those questions. You have to go and apply what you're learning to your life. Application is where the secret comes in. You see, knowledge without application is useless. You see, so as you're learning and you learn from these different people and the different people that you have in your life, then you apply it to your life. When you're with a banker, when you're with your friends who are good at computers and all of that, write down key questions and write down what their responses are. Learn and then go apply it and grow and grow and grow. Too many times we take it for granted, the people that we have access to, and there are people out there will line up for miles to talk to those people. They will line up for miles to talk to those people, and you have access to them right in front of you, and you're not using that access wisely. So I want to encourage you and encourage everyone out there to go out there and use the access, the power of access that you have to the people around you, the power of access that you have to your family members, the power of access you have to your co-workers, the power of access you have to your mentors. If somebody's mentoring you, make sure you're you're utilizing their time wisely. Make sure whenever you call them or whenever you're talking to them, you're learning. Make sure you have those questions written out, so then you're asking solid questions. And then make sure you make note of the responses and make sure you apply those responses. And make sure that as you're growing in such a way that you in turn could go and help somebody else grow. Because that's the whole notion of it all. The whole notion of it all is to teach one so one could go and teach another. You see, the power of access. Access is one of those things. It causes the dissemination of wisdom. You see, I like being in good conversations. I don't like boring conversations. I don't like sitting around with people who just talk. I want, whenever I'm talking to somebody, I want it to be, there is nothing more unattractive to me than to be talking to an adult and it feels like I'm talking to a baby. I like being able to be stimulated, and you do not have to have a degree to talk with wisdom, because I read the book of Proverbs every day, a chapter of Proverbs every day, and I write down my thoughts. I journal what I'm gathering from each chapter. And it shares in there that when you get wisdom, you get common sense. You see, and that's all what we want. We want somebody to share with us common sense. And when you share wisdom, and wisdom doesn't have to have a PhD, wisdom doesn't have to have a bachelor's degree, wisdom doesn't have to have an associate degree. Wisdom just needs somebody who is able to sit at the master's feet, somebody who is able to learn, somebody who is able to glean, and somebody who is able to share what they're learning with others. And that's wisdom. So as wisdom flows, you capture wisdom. So I like talking to people who are full of wisdom, because what happens? Iron sharpens iron. And that's the beauty about it. But then you have to go out there and seek wisdom. You see, wisdom and common sense. You have wisdom, you have common sense. And we look at today's society, and you can see we need a whole lot more wisdom. So you see, go out there. Now, the power of access. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the access to places. Access to places like the library. Access to places like the store. Like you go to Walmart and all of those different places that have books and different things that you could use. Computers, iPads, all of those different technologies that you could use in terms of your learning and in terms of your growth. Access to edx.org and OpenCourseWare through MIT and all of those different universities, places that you could learn things. Access to the internet. A lot of times people don't understand that as you have access, what you have access to, others don't have access to it. You see, somebody in Africa doesn't have access to the same thing on the internet like I have access to. We take a lot of things for granted. You go in and you could get a lot of things for free. You could watch all of what you want to watch. You could do, but on that side of the world, they can't see certain things. You see, the majority of things that you could see, they can't see, and it changes as you go around in the different areas of the world. So not everything you see, everybody sees. So we take things for granted and not realizing the access that we have to learning, the access that we have to grow. You see, as you read, you increase your vocabulary, you increase your word bank, you increase your communication skills, you increase your ability to speak to others, to share with others, to impart your knowledge with others. And that's the beauty of places like libraries and Amazon and all those different places that you could buy books and you could read books, Audible and all of those, because what happens as you grow your mind, as you increase that word bank, the more you put in, what's in the well will come up drop in the bucket. The more you put in will flow out of you. That wisdom, that grace, that knowledge will flow out of you. Another things too that we have access to that a lot of times we take advantage of is things and places, and the things, like for instance, you have access to a car, you have access to computers, you have access to already things that most people don't have access to. You could sit down and you could search for things on the internet. We sit on our phones, on our iPads and all of those, and we look at things, all these different things that we look at, but we don't seem to have the knack to sit down and research and look for the things that we need to look for. We don't seem to have the knack to sit down and refine our search skills in terms of key information that we need for in life. We don't seem to have a knack to do all of those, and we have computers, we have access to those. Even at the libraries and all of those places, you have access to free computers. You can actually go to the library, get a library card, and utilize a computer. All of those different things. We have access to so many things in life, but we don't utilize those things. What we do, we sit down and we complain, and as we complain, we say how bad the life is, how bad things are. But if we realize the power of access and realize the things we have access to and the people we have access to and utilize those access wisely, we will grow. Never stand still. Never let pride get in the way of you learning. Never let pride get in the way of you moving forward. So many times we are so prideful, we can't ask for help. And so many times we are so prideful, we don't realize, we cannot see because it blinds our eyes. We cannot see the key people, the key places, the key things that are around us that will catapult us forward into the destinies that we are created to be. So I want you today to go out and learn the power of access. Enjoy the power of access. Utilize the power of access. Honor the power of access. And allow love to flow out of you with the power of access. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button below. Hit the subscribe button below. And when you hit the subscribe button, don't forget to select the bell, because by selecting the bell, it gives you a wonderful opportunity to be notified whenever I add a new video. God bless you.